All right, so let's start at the beginning. Your buyer showed up. Now, did you pre-qual the buyer? Did you talk to them beforehand when they showed up here?
Just a phone call before she showed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you didn't want to meet them in the office or kind of set anything else like that up?
Her schedule was a little bit challenging, so
Okay.
I was just trying to make it work for her, but I think I could have done more.
Okay. Now listen, so that's okay. Not every buyer is going to want to come to our office or going to want you to come to their office. You want to try to push forward as much as possible because you want to show them how professional you are and how the process of buying a home, no matter what the price point is a big deal, and we should treat it as such. So it shouldn't just be, hey, I'm going to show you homes and turn lights on. It should be, let's sit down, let's go through the steps, because I'm your real estate advisor. I'm the vice president of real estate in my town, and this is how we're going to do it. That way you can lay those expectations, right? So that's okay. So she came, and walk me through what you felt went wrong at the beginning of the tour.
Well, I hadn't been in this condo before,
Sure.
so I was nervous just about how it was going to go. I didn't know the space, and I felt like she sort of picked up on that nervousness that I just didn't know the space that well.
Okay.
And I feel like that made me a little awkward around her.
Yeah. Well, I noticed a few spots where she asked questions and you didn't know what you were talking about, right? So you always want to know as much as you can, and we go through that all the time. You know, the big difference between showing a listing of yours, where you represent the seller, obviously you need to know everything, and showing the buyer a similar listing, is that with the buyer, it's all about the relationship with the buyer. Right? When you're showing your own listing, it's really about your relationship, getting that listing sold, and then making the connection with the buyer.
Sure.
So with the buyer walking through, that's your client, right? She's the money. You don't care if she buys this place or the place next door or a place next week that fits her better. Obviously, you want to close her in the shortest period of time possible because time is our greatest asset.
Yeah.
But the biggest mistake I saw there at the beginning was kind of the lack of that immediate connection and just a general introduction. How are you doing? You know, how's your day so far? A nice little compliment. You know, a strong handshake and a look in the eye. Something like that goes a long way, like you would in any other setting. I think you have to remember, and everybody who's watching, just remember, just because you're in a home about to show a home doesn't mean you have to forget like what being human is all about. And so that's what I try to do differently. So if you watched my showing, the beginning was really about making her comfortable, making her feel warm, making her realize that this is going to be fun. Let's walk through your future apartment, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think if I had been less nervous, then
Sure.
it would have been easier for me to connect to her. And I was just kind of awkward and in my head because of not knowing the space, but that's super helpful.
Okay, well, let's talk about that because that's something that a lot of newer agents and even veteran agents feel all the time. They don't know the product, they don't know the space, especially when representing buyers. You've never been here before.
Right.
So how can we get around that nervousness and how can we prepare for it better next time so that you feel more confident?
Yeah.
What are a few ways?
I could have done more research on the property.
Yep.
So I just really knew like the finishes and
Yep.
you know the counters and the kitchens.
Yep.
I think I could have given us a little more time so I didn't feel so rushed going through the space. Just
Sure.
if we had allotted a little more time with her schedule,
Sure.
then I would have taken the time to just talk to her and get to know her.
Okay, that's two. I think the third thing that you could do, which if you have the time, you should always do, is you preview. Right?
Yeah.
You've never been here before. This is a really big sale.
Sure.
And you want to really impress this buyer, especially because it's the first thing you've ever shown them. Right. The day before, even the morning of, come by for a quick preview, if you can. That way you walk through, pick a few things that you really like, right? Pick a few finishes that you really like. Pick a few things that you know are going to be tough to sell, like maybe the view, maybe it has low lights, maybe it doesn't have that extra bedroom your buyer wants, whatever the details are, and start figuring out ways to handle those objections before the buyer ever even walks in the door. Because remember, in today's market, the buyer has all of these listings in their phone, for the most part. Right. You know, and we're meeting a lot of our buyers either through Zillow or different types of lead generations, and they feel like they know everything, so why do they need us representing them on the buy side? Sure. They need us because we know more than them, we know more than the internet. And we know more than the internet because we've been here before, we know all these finishes, we know the neighborhood, which you did a really great job of talking about the neighborhood, right? We know more about this space than they're going to be able to find out on their own, and we are the uber professionals to help them figure out if this is the space they should buy. Right? That's what we are. We are kind of concierges of information. Sure. And that's how you have to look at yourself. So you can't be a concierge of information if you don't know the information.
Yeah, makes sense.
So do more research, right? Really kind of memorize facts and information so you know what you're talking about, and give yourself enough time so you can walk through and really let the buyer discover the space. And then the third is, if you have time, preview. Preview, preview, preview. You always want to make it feel like you've been in here 1,000 times. Otherwise, you're both discovering it at the same time. And especially with a new buyer, that becomes hard because then they're going to feel like you don't have confidence in yourself showing it, so why should they have confidence in themselves buying it?
Totally. It was awkward.
Okay.
So.
What happened in here that you thought could have gone a little bit better?
I didn't know the finishes. I didn't know what kind of fireplace it was.
Sure.
I didn't know the ceiling height. Just, again, information that I could have researched.
Product knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And then there was one moment that I thought was kind of funny where you were talking about art, right? And it kind of fell flat.
I think she told me about herself a bit, and I just sort of, because I was, again, up in my head, I kind of just brushed it off.
Right. That's a great moment to start connecting with the client, to try to find something that maybe you have in common. Even if you don't have anything in common with her around art, if she's bringing up art or she likes the art, instead of just saying, yeah, it's cool art, or yeah, that's how they staged it, you can open up a conversation. Oh, do you have art in your current home? You know, are you looking for a space that has a lot of wall space for art? You know, what kind of artist do you like? I really like Picasso. You know, like, you have an open conversation and get her talking. Yeah. What you really want to do with buyers specifically is make a friend. Because again, people hate being sold, but they love shopping with friends. You want to make her a friend, you want to make her an advocate, and that's really what the best clients are. That way they're comfortable telling you all their secrets, everything that they really love about the space and hate about the space, and that's going to help you know what works for them, what doesn't work for them, to get them closer to the close. All right?
Do you think that I totally messed it up with her, or can I still salvage that relationship?
I think you can still salvage it. Okay. I think you will have to work really, really hard. Okay. And I think on the next place you show her, if she allows you to show her another place, you have to go preview it, and you have to really know your stuff. Okay. And you have to bring her information and not let her be the driver. I think the biggest difference between the way you showed and I showed is I really drove the showing. I told her where to go. I told her what we were seeing. I walked her through the space, and I still gave her room to breathe and be flexible. Right? But for you, you kind of let your client drive. You let your client bring up moments. Like, she brought up things in this room. She brought up things upstairs. And there were moments there where you could have really gotten to know her better versus kind of what you did, which is let her drive because you were nervous. Yeah. And you get over nervousness by just knowing more. That's it. All right? And so for me, when I was in this room, like, there are things that you want to talk about here. You have 21-foot ceilings, if you knew that. You have amazing exposed brick. You have a gas fireplace. You've got the wood floor on the ceilings, all these windows. You've got an outdoor space out there on Great Jones Street, which you didn't mention. That's huge. To have outdoor space off your living room on Great Jones in NoHo in Manhattan is a crazy, crazy, crazy thing to have. And there's a lot of things you could do with this space. And so you want to drive that conversation and get them excited, right? You're also selling enthusiasm, not just an apartment or a home.
Sure.
There was a great moment you had when you were walking by the stairs where your client said that it reminded her of her home in California. Yeah. You kind of just acknowledged but brushed it past, right? That's a great moment to, again, find something in common, really get to know her, and make her a friend. So if you noticed during my showing, where we went into the master bedroom, and I started talking about the fact that I just had a baby, and all of a sudden, she takes her sunglasses off, her face lights up, she says, "How did you know?" I'm like, "How did you know what?" She's like, "We're trying for a baby." Boom. Golden nugget. That's really why they're trying to move. And she didn't tell me that when I first sat down with her in my office and went through everything. Now I've got something in common with her. Now I know where the heartstrings are, and what I'm really, really working on is finding her a beautiful home for her future family. And I'm sure there's a whole reason why your client is looking to move too. That's not just relocating. You want to find that emotion, because it's really, really hard to negotiate with people's wallets, but it's a muscle that we can all learn to negotiate with their feelings. Okay? And then upstairs, right? You had a good conversation up there. You mentioned the art studio, but it would have been better if it had started that conversation downstairs when the client mentioned art.
Yeah, I actually like art. I was just nervous, and I just didn't.
Which is an easy fix. Yeah. Like, literally, every new agent out there, and even veteran agents who have trouble with buyers, they get nervous just because they don't know what they're talking about. Right. So if you know what you're talking about, you know, think about kind of any second showing you go on with somebody or third showing you go on with somebody. Once you finally get there, all that nervousness goes away because you've been in the home 2 or 3 times. You know exactly what they're looking for. That feeling you want to have on the first showing. And the only way you're going to do it is if you're confident in yourself, which sometimes means you have to preview or just really memorize information. All right? Yeah. And then the last thing that we both did very, very differently, but again, that's why I'm here, that's why we're going through this, and that's why you're all watching this, is for me, I'm closing consistently because I want to work with buyers, not shoppers. And I'm not a tour guide. I'm a real estate broker and a real estate advisor, and we are moving forward towards a purchase and towards a close. You never really talked about, during your showing, qualifications with the buyer, right? You never really talked about making offers. You never talked about any of the trusted partners we work with, regards to bankers or attorneys, or the entire process of actually buying a home. You really just pointed out a lot of nice things, tried to make conversation, and then when you asked her if it was for her, the conversation just ended, and then you let her go.
Yeah.
So you really just kind of were a tour guide, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't wait till the end. When I was upstairs in the mezzanine space, I made sure to check in with her on all of those actual buyer questions and buyer qualification points. How did it go with the banker I already connected you to? How did it go with the attorney I already connected you to? Now, granted, I met with her before. For you, that could have been a great moment in the apartment to say, have you already connected with a banker? Have you already connected with an attorney? I've got great ones, the best in the city. Let me connect you. I'll introduce you by email after the showing. They're great, great people. Little things like that, because you want to make sure that their mind, when they see you, is connected to buying real estate and not just seeing real estate.
Sure.
A huge, huge difference. So that way, when I brought my client back downstairs, I was already moving forward to the next step, getting us closer to the closing, which was, I got to get your fiance back in here. Let's do it. That's our next step, because I think she could really like this place, and I think it could be great for her. And she had already talked to the banker and the attorney, and she was ready to go, and she left with a smile on her face. Whereas for you, even if it wasn't right for your client, you want to make sure she's leaving with the next steps ready to go. Because again, she's your buyer, right? You want to go with her no matter where she buys. So if she didn't like this place, did you ask her if she's seen any other places?
No.
Did you ask her if she wanted to see any other places?
I did.
And what did she say?
Well, I told her I might have some other ones
Okay.
that I could line up.
Okay.
But I was kind of wishy-washy about it.
Yeah, it's kind of a wishy-washy, soft response. So that's kind of like walking into a shoe store and you don't buy any shoes, and then someone says to you, yeah, no, I'm going to go think about some shoes and I'll come back to you. That person's never coming back to the shoe store ever. There's other places they can buy shoes, and no one walks around barefoot anyway, so they don't really even need shoes, right? So your client, fortunately, doesn't have a place in New York, is moving to New York, and actually needs a place in New York, and you want them to buy it through you. So continuing that relationship forward, setting up the next date, setting up those expectations. You don't have to close and demand offers on the spot, but you want to set up that closing early enough so that it's not this big, scary thing at the end. So that way you're always talking about closing from the beginning. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then that's it. That, I think, as we went through all of those steps, those are the main points on how to really show a buyer and keep them as a buyer and either close them or make sure that they're your buyer client going forward. Make sense?
Yeah.
Did you learn something?
Definitely.
Yeah? Going forward, you're going to feel better?
Yeah, I'm going to do my homework.
All right, good. And listen, you did a good job. There's a lot of good things you did. So be happy, right? Be positive. Everything's going to be great. You're going to make a lot of money in this business, and just keep following what we're talking about. And every showing you do, you're going to get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And as we're talking about closings, that brings us up to our next video when we get to the really fun stuff. Let's learn how to negotiate.